At my wife's funeral, I got a message. I'm alive. Don't trust anyone. What happened next changed my life forever. Before we start, let me know in the comments where you're watching my story from, so I can see how far it has reached. My name is David Carter, and I'm 65 years old. What I'm about to tell you shattered everything I thought I knew about family, love, and betrayal. The funeral for my wife, Gloria, was supposed to be the quiet end of a hard chapter. She had been my partner for 42 years, my rock, my reason for waking up every morning. Yet, standing beside that mahogany casket, as the pastor mumbled about eternal rest and brighter shores, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I glanced down, expecting another condolence message. What I read froze my blood. I'm alive. That's not me in the casket. I stared at the words until they blurred. My fingers shook as I typed back, "Who is this?" The reply came quick. "I can't say. They're watching. Don't trust our sons." Our sons. I lifted my head slowly, my gaze landing on Marcus and Daryl, who were standing stiffly at the other end of the grave. Their suits were sharp, their shoes polished brighter than the gravestones around us. But their faces were wrong. Their tears looked rehearsed. Their hugs earlier that morning had felt cold, obligatory. A chill ran through me. I'd met Gloria in Macon, Georgia, back when I was 23 and trying to hold myself together after my father died. She had been 22, working double shifts at a diner off Mulberry Street to help pay for her mama's medication. I was fixing bikes in a garage I inherited from my old man. Grease always under my nails. Hope always just out of reach. We had nothing but each other. And somehow, that was enough. I'll never forget the first day she spoke to me. It was a Tuesday, the kind of muggy Georgia morning where the air feels like soup. She walked past the garage in a faded yellow sundress, her shoes so worn the soles flapped against the pavement. She smiled, shy but radiant, and said, "Morning, David. You fix tires too?" "I fix whatever's broken," I answered, wiping my hands on a rag that was just as dirty as my overalls. That was the start. Conversations turned into long walks through Tatnall Square Park, then into promises beneath the big oak tree near the fountain. A year later, we said our vows in a church so small the roof leaked when it rained. We didn't care. We had each other, and that was more than enough. The first years were hard. Lord, they were hard. We lived in a shotgun house with a tin roof that rattled whenever storms came rolling in from the west. When it rained, we put buckets under the leaks and laughed at how they sounded like a ragged little symphony. I fixed bikes all day, and Gloria sewed clothes at night by the dim glow of a lamp we bought at a pawn shop. When Marcus was born, I thought my chest would burst with pride. He had Gloria's soft eyes and my stubborn chin. 2 years later, Daryl came along, just as perfect. We didn't have money, but we had love. I taught the boys to fish down at the Okmulgee River, to patch a flat, to stand tall when life tried to knock them down. Gloria rocked them to sleep with old gospel hymns, fed them collard greens and cornbread, kissed every scraped knee. We were a family, or at least, I believed we were. But as they grew older, things changed. Marcus was always ambitious. He asked me why we lived in a shack, why we didn't drive a car like the neighbors, why we couldn't buy things he saw on TV. Daryl followed his brother in everything. When Marcus turned 18, I offered him a job in the garage. He wrinkled his nose and said, "I'm not about to break my back over tires like you, Pops. I'm going to make real money." Those words cut deep, though I never told him. That night I sat on the porch with Gloria, watching the fireflies, my heart heavy. "Our boy don't see the value in what we built," I murmured. She laid her hand on mine. "He'll understand one day, David. They both will." But she was wrong. Marcus landed a job at a real estate company in Atlanta. Daryl followed a year later, hustling in finance. Suddenly, our boys were pulling up in shiny Cadillacs, wearing tailored suits, talking about stocks and condos as if money were air. At first, I was proud. They had climbed out of poverty, something Gloria and I had always dreamed they might do. But soon pride turned into sorrow. Visits grew rare, phone calls shorter. When they did come, they looked around our little house with something between pity and shame. "Dad," Marcus said one Thanksgiving, standing in the doorway with his wife, Vanessa, A city woman with diamonds on her fingers and disdain in her eyes. You and Mom should think about selling this place. Move into a condo closer to the city. This house, it's falling apart. He wasn't wrong. The paint peeled, the roof sagged. But it was our home. Every inch held our story. The stains on the floor where Marcus spilled his first soda. The pencil marks on the wall where Daryl's height was measured each year. Memories worth more than marble countertops. Gloria squeezed my hand under the table and whispered, "Money changed our boys, David. We ain't enough for them no more." I wanted to believe otherwise. I told myself they were just busy, building their own lives. But deep down, I knew Gloria was right. Somewhere along the way, we lost them. The final straw came when Marcus married Vanessa. She strutted into our yard the first time in 6-inch heels that sank into the mud, her lips curling at the sight of our peeling porch. She barely touched the collard greens Gloria had cooked with love, pushing them around her plate like they were poison. Marcus apologized for the food, for the house, for us. That night, as I sat on the porch alone, I realized the truth. Our sons weren't ours anymore. Still, nothing, absolutely nothing, could have prepared me for what came after Gloria's so-called accident. It was a Tuesday morning when the phone rang. A voice from Grady Memorial Hospital said my wife had been in a terrible kitchen accident, something about a fire and smoke inhalation. I dropped everything and rushed there. By the time I arrived, Marcus and Daryl were already in the waiting room. That struck me as strange. They lived across town, yet somehow they had gotten there before me. When I finally saw her in the ICU, she was wrapped in tubes and machines, barely recognizable. They told me she had severe lung damage. That recovery was unlikely. I held her hand, whispered, "Gloria, I'm right here," and swore I felt the faintest squeeze. 3 days later, the machines went silent. My world ended, or so I thought, until her funeral, when that message lit up my phone. "I'm alive." That's not me in the casket. Don't trust our sons. I didn't tell a soul about the message at the cemetery. I pocketed my phone, nodded through the last hymn, and let the sky spit a cold drizzle on my hat while the pastor said the final amen. Marcus squeezed my shoulder like a man who wanted witnesses. Daryl kept glancing at his watch, as if grief had a schedule. When the dirt hit the wood, I felt my knees go soft, but not from the weight of goodbye. No, it was the weight of maybe. Back home, the house felt wrong. Gloria's red robe still hung on the bedroom hook. Her church hat sat on the dresser like it was waiting for Sunday. But the kitchen didn't look like a room where a deadly fire had started. The counters were wiped down, the burn smell gone, the stove spotless. Daryl had helped arrange a cleaning crew 2 days after she passed. Said he didn't want me suffering the trauma. I had thanked him at the time. Now I stood there wishing I could pry time open with my bare hands and stop anyone from touching a thing. I pulled out my phone and stared at the unknown number. "Who are you?" I typed. "Where's my wife?" 3 dots blinked, vanished, returned. "Can't call. Can't risk it. Check the paperwork. Start with insurance. Then the bank. Don't tell Marcus or Daryl." I swallowed hard. "If this is a joke, I will find you," I wrote. No response came. The little dots never came back. Gloria kept our important stuff in a battered metal lockbox in the closet, tucked beneath a stack of quilts her grandmother had pieced. The box key was taped under the shelf, her habit, not mine. I knelt, opened the lid, and smelled dust and old paper. I found the deed to our house on Carter Street, a stack of medical bills paid off years ago, our marriage certificate, and 2 policies. The first was a life insurance we'd carried since the boys were little, the kind we could barely afford back then. $5,000 for burial, nothing more. Except the number wasn't 5,000 anymore. 6 months ago, it had been amended. Now it read $50,000, plus an accidental death and dismemberment rider worth another $75,000. I read the line again to make sure my eyes weren't playing tricks. There was also a separate creditor protection policy tied to a small personal loan we'd never had before. I checked the beneficiary line. Primary, David Carter, spouse. Good. Contingent, Marcus Carter and Daryl Carter, sons. That made sense on paper. But why had we changed the amount? I would have remembered spending hours on a phone call arguing over premiums. I would have remembered signing. The signature at the bottom said Gloria M. Carter in a hand that looked like hers, but looser, shakier. Gloria's G always curved neat and tight like a treble clef on a hymn book. This one sagged. I pulled the second policy. An accident protection plan. Payout up to $25,000 for any at-home accident resulting in death. Date of issue: 8 weeks before Gloria died. The agent's name jumped off the page. M. Carter, authorized representative. There was a notation in tiny print. Telephonic consent recorded. Documents delivered by courier. My jaw set. I stared at our wedding photo on the dresser. Gloria at 22. Eyes bright. Lips pressed together like she was trying not to cry happy tears, and tried to hear her voice. David, she would have said, sit down. Breathe. Now think. So I did. I sat on the bed, closed my eyes, counted my breaths, and then I knew what I had to do first. The next morning, I put on a clean shirt, the gray one Gloria said made me look pastor handsome, and drove to Peachtree Federal Credit Union. We'd banked there for 28 years. The morning teller, Mia, recognized me right off and pressed her lips together with sympathy. Mr. Carter, she whispered, I'm so sorry for your loss. Thank you, I said. I need to see the account statements for the last 6 months. Savings and checking. And I'd like to speak to a manager. She nodded and disappeared. A few minutes later, Ms. Whitaker, the branch manager, led me into a small glass office with a bowl of peppermint candies on the table. She was a tidy woman in a navy suit, the kind who made you feel like your money was safe by sheer posture. I'm sorry about Gloria, she said, sincere as a hymn. She was always kind to our staff. She was. My voice rasped. I need to look at withdrawals, especially cash. She printed the statements and slid them across. I traced the columns with a finger. There they were. $900 in January, $2,500 in February, $4,000 in March, then $1,800 2 weeks before Gloria died. All from savings. We rarely touched savings. Who authorized these? I asked. Each slip has a signature, Ms. Whitaker said gently, and in 2 cases, a driver's license swipe. She brought copies. The signatures looked like Gloria's, but again, not tight, not careful. Were these withdrawals alone? I asked. She tilted her head, thinking. I remember at least one. Your son was with her, Marcus, I believe. He said he was helping because she forgot her reading glasses. Ms. Whitaker paused, reading my face like it was a ledger. Is something wrong, Mr. Carter? I could feel my heartbeat in my throat. Gloria never went anywhere without those glasses. She had a chain on them like a librarian. Ms. Whitaker tapped one slip. Here's the license scan. It matches her ID. She hesitated. We also have video for the lobby, if that helps. It did. I watched the screen as the footage loaded. There was Gloria, walking slower than usual, wearing her blue cardigan, the one with loose threads at the cuff. Beside her, Marcus led the way to the counter, holding a folder. He did most of the talking. When the teller slid the slip over, Gloria signed. Then Marcus patted her hand and took the cash himself, sliding it into his folder. He looked composed, practiced. I felt my jaw do a hard, private thing. Can I get copies? I asked. Ms. Whitaker made them without another question. As I gathered the papers, she added quietly, If you need me to note anything for the record, I can. Not yet, I said. But please don't destroy these videos. I may have to come back. On my way out, I stopped beside the plate glass window and stared at my reflection. I looked older than 65 right then, older and meaner, but I also looked steady. Gloria always said I was a slow storm, quiet until I gathered enough force to move a tree. I drove next to Fulton County Fire Rescue on Pryor Street to request the incident report for the kitchen fire. A young man at the desk, Officer Delaney, pulled up the logs. Name and address, he asked, clicking. Gloria Carter, 114 Carter Street. He typed, frowned, typed again. We don't have a fire response at that address within the last month, he said. My stomach dropped. There was a kitchen accident. Smoke inhalation, they said. EMS took her to Grady. He checked another database. EMS did respond to a medical call. Unresponsive adult female, transported to Grady. But the notes say no active fire on scene. Neighbors reported a strong chemical smell. Fire crew cleared after confirming no structure fire. Chemical. I tasted copper. Can I get a copy of that EMS report? You'll need to request it from Grady, he said, offering me a printed instruction sheet. But I can print the call summary for you. He slid me a page showing incident times. No flames. No smoke event. Just a woman, my woman, carried out on a stretcher while my sons told me it was a stove fire. I stepped outside and the sun felt like it had lost a few degrees. I texted the unknown number. No fire report. Why did they say stove? What do you know? No answer came. I drove home and went straight to Gloria's sewing table. She kept a little spiral notebook there, green cover, with grocery lists and choir dates. Halfway through, a page in her tidy hand stopped me cold. Marcus says we need more insurance. For David. Daryl brought papers. I signed but didn't like the rush. Vanessa keeps asking about selling the house. Something feels off. Lord, give me wisdom. The date was 3 weeks before she died. I sat very still. The clock ticked louder than usual. A lawnmower buzzed 2 streets over. A train moaned somewhere far off like an old man having a bad dream. I ran a thumb over Gloria's words until the ink blurred under my skin. By afternoon, Marcus showed up in my driveway without calling, wearing a smile that didn't make it to his eyes. "Pop," he said, arms open. "Just checking on you." I let him hug me. His cologne filled my chest like smoke. "I brought some paperwork to help with the estate stuff," he said lightly, lifting a leather portfolio. "Beneficiary transfers, you know, so you won't have to stress. We can also get the house listed while the market is hot. Vanessa knows a staging company." He laughed like it was all kindness. "Leave the papers," I said. He blinked. "You want me to?" "On the table. I'll look when I'm ready." He studied me, then smiled again. "Of course." He set the folder down, eyes drifting over the kitchen, my scrub, too clean kitchen. "By the way, Daryl's got some friends at the hospital who can expedite the insurance claim. Faster's better, right?" I watched his mouth move and pictured that bank video. His hand sliding the cash into his folder, his fingers patting my wife's wrist. I pictured Gloria's notebook, the word rush underlined twice. "Marcus," I said, "who suggested those new policies?" He lifted a shoulder. "We all talked about it, Pop. Just being smart. With your age, with Mom's blood pressure. Gloria's last checkup was fine," I said, keeping my voice even. "Doctor said so." He opened his hands. "Look, I know this is hard. Let us carry the load." "I've been carrying loads since before you could tie your shoes," I said softly. For a second the smile slipped. Then it was back. "I'll call you tomorrow," he said and left. As soon as his taillights turned the corner, I opened his portfolio. Inside were pre-filled forms, power of attorney drafts, a listing agreement with a realty firm Vanessa worked with, and a consent letter authorizing Marcus to communicate with insurance carriers on behalf of David Carter due to emotional distress. Someone had already typed my name into the signature line. I didn't sign a thing. Instead, I brewed coffee the way Gloria liked it, 2 sugars, a whisper of cinnamon, then carried a mug to the porch and sat. The evening light washed our street gold. Kids bicycled past. A woman watered her azaleas, a neighbor waved. The world had the nerve to keep being ordinary. I took out my phone and scrolled through Gloria's messages. Most were recipes, choir times, church sisters laughing about hats. Then I saw one chain with our neighbor, Ms. Hattie, from 2 weeks before Gloria died. Gloria. Hattie. Did Marcus stop by today when I was napping? I thought I heard the back door. Hattie. I saw his car around lunchtime. Everything okay? Gloria. He was looking for the lockbox, said it was for paperwork. I told him we'd do it when David was home. He looked annoyed. I put the phone down and stared at the yard until the dusk took it. By the time the cicadas fired up, my decision was made. I wasn't selling, I wasn't signing, and I wasn't letting anyone shepherd me anyplace for my own good. In the morning, I would go to Grady and request every page of Gloria's medical file, the EMS notes, the tox screens, the admitting report. I would get the fire call summary stamped official. I would copy Gloria's notebook page, tuck the original back where it belonged, and I would lock the box with a new key. And if that mystery number ever texted again, I'd be ready with documents, dates, and a man's steadiness when it's time to fight for the woman he loves. The next morning I rose before the sun. Sleep hadn't touched me anyway. I dressed in dark slacks and a plain shirt, the kind I used to wear to church business meetings, and drove downtown while the city still yawned. My first stop was Grady Memorial Hospital, the place where Gloria had drawn her last breath, or so they told me. Inside, the hall smelled like disinfectant and weak coffee. I found a medical records office, a glass window with a sliding slot. The clerk, a young woman with braids pulled into a bun, gave me the patient request form. "I need the complete file for my wife," I said. "Gloria M. Carter. She was admitted 3 weeks ago and passed that Friday." She tapped at her keyboard. "You're the spouse, right?" "Yes, ma'am." "Then you're authorized. But you'll need to wait a little while. We have to pull everything." I waited in a chair under buzzing fluorescent lights, watching nurses push carts, doctors striding with clipboards, people coughing into paper masks. Finally, the clerk returned with a thick manila envelope. "These are copies," she said. "Doctor's notes, nursing logs, lab results, everything." I thanked her and carried the envelope like it was glass. Back in my truck, I set it on the passenger seat and stared at it. My hand shook. Whatever was in there could either put my doubts to rest or blow my whole life wide open. I opened it. The admitting report caught me first. Patient found unresponsive at residence. No visible burns. No active fire. Neighbor reported strong odor, like chemicals. Not smoke. Not flames. Chemicals. The labs were next. My eyes narrowed at the highlighted section. Elevated methanol levels detected in blood sample. Toxicology recommended repeat test. Notes: possible ingestion or inhalation. Symptoms consistent: confusion, respiratory distress, loss of consciousness. Methanol. That wasn't stove grease. And it sure wasn't smoke from a skillet. That was poison. I kept reading. 3 separate notes from different nurses. Family members insist patient injured in kitchen fire. Son Marcus Carter requested details of insurance coverage. Son Daryl Carter asked about prognosis and quality of life if patient survives. I felt something hot crawl up my neck. My wife was lying half dead, and my sons were talking about money and quality of life. The discharge summary, the one sent to the funeral home, listed cause of death as respiratory failure secondary to inhalation injury from accidental household fire. A lie. A neat, tidy lie. I pressed the envelope shut and sat back. My jaw ached from clenching. Gloria had always said, "The truth comes out in the wash, David. Maybe not the first rinse, but eventually." I finally understood what she meant. On my way out of the parking lot, my phone buzzed. Unknown number again. "Did you see it?" I typed back with shaking thumbs, "Yes." "Poison. Who are you? How do you know?" The reply came after a pause. "I'll explain soon. Not safe on text. Don't trust Marcus or Daryl. They planned this. Keep quiet." I wanted to scream into the phone, "Where is Gloria? Is she alive?" But my gut told me not to push. Whoever was sending these messages knew too much already. I drove straight to Sergeant Paul Henderson, an old friend from church who worked with the Atlanta Police Department. He was retired now, but still had contacts. I found him on his porch, sipping sweet tea, his knees wrapped in an old Braves blanket. "David Carter," he said, eyebrows lifting. "Man, I heard about Gloria. I was planning to come by. I'm sorry, brother." I sat down beside him and handed over the envelope. "Read these." He thumbed through slowly, his face turning darker with each page. "This ain't no accident," he muttered finally. "Methanol. Lord, David, that's what alcohol. You know what that means." "Tell me." "Means somebody gave it to her on purpose. Could be in a drink, could be in food. It don't show up like cyanide or arsenic. A lot of doctors miss it unless they're looking. He tapped the page. But this lab tech didn't miss it. Question is, why'd the final report say fire smoke? My boys, I said hoarsely. They pushed that story. They kept saying stove fire. Paul looked at me a long moment. David, you gotta be careful. If what you're saying is true, you're dealing with people willing to kill their own mama. That makes you next. I swallowed hard. I'm not going to roll over. He nodded. Good. But you need proof. More than this. You need chain of custody. Lab tests. Witness statements. Otherwise, folks will say you're just a grieving old man. I thought of Marcus's slick smile, Daryl's restless eyes, Vanessa's disdain. I thought of Gloria's note in her green spiral, the word rush. My grief burned down into something colder, sharper. Then I'll get proof, I said. That afternoon, I stopped by Ms. Hattie's house. She was our neighbor, 81 years old, with sharp eyes behind big glasses. She answered her door with a cane in one hand and a Bible in the other. David, she said, pulling me into a hug. Lord have mercy, I'm so sorry. I've been praying for you. Thank you, Hattie. I lowered my voice. I need to ask you something. 2 weeks before Gloria passed, did you see Marcus around our house? Her lips tightened. I did. Middle of the day, when you was at the garage. He went in the back door, like he owned the place. Stayed maybe 15 minutes. Gloria told me later he was looking for that lockbox of y'all's. She told him to wait for me. That's what she said. Hattie studied my face. David, I didn't want to say nothing at the funeral, but them boys of yours looked too calm, like they knew it was coming. Her words hit me like a hammer. I thanked her, promised I'd keep her safe, and walked back across the yard. My legs felt heavy, like each step sank deeper into the earth. When I got home, Daryl was sitting on my porch swing. He jumped up like he'd been caught. Hey, Pops, he said too quickly. Just wanted to check on you. I kept my voice steady. I just came from Grady. Picked up your mama's records. His eyes flickered. Oh, that's good. Closure and all. Records say no fire. Say chemicals in her blood. He froze. Then he laughed, thin and shaky. You know how hospitals are. Mix-ups all the time. Don't go reading into it. I stepped closer. What did you and Marcus do? His jaw worked, but he didn't answer. Finally, he muttered, You need to let this go, Pops. For your own sake. He hurried down the steps, fumbling his car keys, and drove off without looking back. That night, alone in the house, I spread everything across the table. The insurance policies with shaky signatures, the bank slips with Marcus beside Gloria, the medical file screaming methanol, the green notebook with Gloria's warning, and Ms. Hattie's memory of Marcus sneaking into our home. The picture was coming together, ugly and undeniable. But the question that kept clawing at me was this. If Gloria really was alive, if the message was true, where was she? Who had her? And why send me these hints instead of walking back through the door? At midnight, my phone buzzed again. Don't confront them yet. Too dangerous. I'll bring you proof. Meet me Friday, 3 p.m. Piedmont Park by the gazebo. My heart hammered. Proof. Friday. I typed back, Will Gloria be there? The reply came fast. Just come. Trust no one. I put the phone face down on the table and rubbed my temples. The house was quiet, but it didn't feel empty. It felt like Gloria's spirit was still there, urging me to be strong. I whispered into the dark. I'll find the truth, baby. I swear it. The clock ticked past 1. Then 2. Outside, a dog barked, then fell silent. I finally dozed in my chair, surrounded by papers that told me my sons were not just lost men chasing money. They were something worse. And come Friday, I would know just how deep the betrayal went. Friday came heavy, like the sky itself knew what waited for me. I hadn't slept more than 2 hours in 3 days. Every creak in the house made me sit up straight. Every passing car light spilling across my curtains made me think Marcus or Daryl was outside, watching. By noon, I was dressed in a dark jacket, hat pulled low. I tucked the copies of Gloria's medical report and her green notebook page into a folder and slid it into my satchel. My hands trembled as I locked the door. The drive to Piedmont Park felt longer than it was. I passed joggers, couples with strollers, kids tossing footballs. Life carried on while mine unraveled. When I reached the park, I parked a few blocks away so Marcus's or Daryl's people wouldn't spot my truck. The gazebo sat near the pond, its white paint peeling, pigeons strutting across the steps. I walked slow, pretending I had all the time in the world, but my pulse pounded like a drumline in my chest. At exactly 3 o'clock, a tall man in a brown coat approached. His hair was silver at the temples, his eyes sharp but kind. He carried a leather satchel. "Mr. Carter?" he asked in a low voice. "That's me. My name's Elliot Grant. I'm a private investigator. Your wife hired me 3 weeks before she died, or before she was supposed to die." I froze. "Gloria hired you?" He nodded. "She came to me worried about your sons. Said they were pressuring her to sign papers, talking about insurance, asking too many questions about your finances. She feared something was coming." My throat tightened. "She didn't tell me. She didn't want to burden you," Elliot said gently. "She thought if she had evidence, she could confront them together with you." He opened his satchel and pulled out a small voice recorder. "I planted audio devices in your house, with her permission. You need to hear this." He pressed play. Marcus's voice filled the quiet gazebo. "We can't wait much longer. The old man's still sharp. He'll catch on. Gloria already looks nervous." Then Daryl's voice. "I've got the methanol. Friend at the lab says it's hard to trace if we keep the story consistent. Just say it was a kitchen fire, inhalation. Nobody will check." My knees almost buckled. My own sons. Their voices cold, planning murder like discussing groceries. Elliot switched to another clip. Vanessa's voice, cool and dismissive. "Make it quick. The money will cover the debts, and we can finally breathe. Just make sure David doesn't get suspicious." I pressed my hands to my face. The woman I'd welcomed into my home, who ate Gloria's cornbread with barely concealed disdain, was part of it too. Elliot laid a hand on my shoulder. "I know this is unbearable, but you need to see it through. They didn't just plan to kill Gloria." He handed me a transcript. I scanned it, my stomach turning. Marcus. After Mom, Dad's next. Make it look like stress got him. Heart failure. He won't fight us on the money then. Daryl. He's stubborn. What if he pushes back? Marcus. Then we'll make sure he doesn't push back. A widower drowning in grief? Nobody will question a suicide. I stared at the words until they blurred. My sons weren't just thieves. They were executioners. And I was the next name on their list. I swallowed hard. Why text me after the funeral? Why say Gloria's alive? Elliot hesitated. Because I don't believe she died that day. I think they staged it. The body in the casket. Don't, I said sharply, my voice cracking. Don't you dare play with me. I'm not playing, he said firmly. Look at this. He pulled out photographs. One showed Gloria at a clinic downtown 3 days before her accident. She was smiling, healthy, holding a clipboard. The date stamp was clear. She went for a full exam, Elliot explained. Clean bill of health. No lung problems, no heart trouble. Then suddenly she's dead from smoke inhalation? Another photo showed Marcus outside Haven Funeral Services, 2 days before Gloria officially passed. He was shaking hands with the director. He arranged everything before her death certificate was even signed, Elliot said. Too quick, too clean. I pressed the photos to my chest, as if they were fragments of Gloria herself. Where is she? I don't know yet, Elliot admitted, but I believe she's being kept somewhere. Maybe forced to sign documents, maybe worse. The texts you've been getting, they're from me. I thought it best not to reveal myself until I had enough evidence. But I believe Gloria found a way to send a message too, through someone I hired to watch the funeral. Hope and terror twisted inside me like barbed wire. So what now? I asked. Now we build a case, Elliot said. We take this to the police once we have proof beyond doubt. We find Gloria, if she's alive, and we protect you. I nodded slowly. The world tilted under me, but I stayed upright. That evening, back at my house, I found Marcus waiting on the porch again. He smiled wide, too wide. Pup, I was worried. You weren't answering your phone. I was out, I said, keeping my face blank. He followed me inside without asking, eyes scanning the living room. You holding up okay? Best I can. He set a paper bag on the table. Brought you dinner. Fried chicken from Busy Bee. The smell hit me, normally mouth-watering, but tonight it turned my stomach. I remembered Elliot's recording, a widower drowning in grief. Nobody questions a suicide. Appreciate it, I said, but didn't touch the bag. Marcus leaned against the counter. So, Pop, about the house. Vanessa knows a buyer. All cash, no fuss. We can close fast. You'd have money to live comfortable. I ain't selling, I said flatly. He chuckled. Come on now, Pop. Be reasonable. This house is falling apart. You're alone. You can't keep it up. I said no. The smile slipped for a moment, and something colder flashed in his eyes. Then he clapped my shoulder. Think about it. We only want what's best for you. When he left, I waited until his taillights disappeared, then locked the door and shoved the bag of chicken straight into the trash. That night, Elliot called from a block number. David, we don't have much time. They're pushing you hard because their debts are catching up. I traced Marcus's bank records. He owes nearly $80,000 to loan sharks. Daryl's in deep with gamblers. They're desperate. I sat in the dark kitchen, Gloria's robe hanging in the doorway like a shadow. So they're willing to kill their parents for cash. Elliot's voice was steady. We'll stop them, but we need to move fast. Tomorrow, I'll bring you more evidence. Don't eat or drink anything they give you. Don't sign a single paper. And David, if they push too hard, call me right away. I promised I would, then hung up. I stared at the empty chair across from me, the one Gloria always sat in with her tea. I whispered, I'm coming for you, baby. Hold on. The house creaked. Outside, a car idled for a moment before driving off. My skin prickled. I knew it then. Marcus and Daryl weren't just circling. They were closing in. And unless I moved first, they'd finish what they started. The following morning broke gray and damp, the kind of day where the air itself felt heavy with warning. I barely touched the oatmeal I fixed myself, couldn't shake the thought of Gloria's chair, sitting empty across the table. My hands fidgeted with her old coffee mug, the one with the faded #OneMom print. At 9:15 sharp, tires crunched over my gravel driveway. Two cars pulled up, Marcus's black Lexus and Daryl's silver Mercedes. Both doors slammed. I braced myself. They didn't knock. Marcus opened the door like he owned the place, Vanessa trailing behind him in a sleek blue dress that didn't fit our worn-down neighborhood. Daryl followed, phone in hand, thumbs tapping as if business came before blood. Morning, Pop, Marcus said too cheerfully. We were worried. Haven't been answering our calls. I've been busy, I said, voice flat. Vanessa placed a bakery box on the table, opening it like she was offering me treasure. Cinnamon rolls, your favorite. From that place downtown you always liked. I caught the faintest look they exchanged when I didn't reach for one. Elliot's warning echoed in my head. Don't eat or drink anything they give you. Daryl slid his phone into his pocket and sat across from me. We need to talk about your future, Dad. Marcus leaned forward, his hands clasped. We've been speaking with Dr. Whitaker. He's a psychiatrist. Says it's common for folks your age to get, well, confused, especially after losing a spouse. My chest tightened. Confused? Yes, Pop, Marcus said gently, like he was explaining something to a child. You've been saying strange things. Going to the police station, asking neighbors if Mom's really gone. Doris told us you've been talking to yourself on the porch at night. Doris would never say that, which meant they were lying outright, or trying to build a paper trail. Your grief's making you paranoid, Vanessa added smoothly, crossing her legs. It's nothing to be ashamed of, but it does mean you need proper care. Proper care? I asked, my voice low. Daryl nodded. There's a facility in Sandy Springs. Nice place. Doctors, nurses, activities. You'd have friends your age. No more struggling alone in this big, broken house. I looked at each of them, their faces carefully rehearsed masks of concern. Beneath it, I saw the truth. They weren't here to help me. They were here to bury me alive in a place I couldn't fight back. You want to stick me in a home, I said slowly, testing the weight of the words. It's for your safety, Pop, Marcus said, his smile tightening. And while you're there, we'll manage your finances. Sell the house, settle the insurance, make sure you're provided for. There it was, the mask slipping, the scheme laid bare. And what if I say no? Silence pressed heavy for a beat. Then Daryl leaned in, his voice low, almost a growl. Then we do it the legal way. Already spoke with Judge Morton. We file for guardianship. Bring in testimony from Dr. Whitaker, maybe from a neighbor or two. Court rules you incompetent, and we make the decisions for you. Vanessa smiled faintly, like the thought pleased her. My heart pounded, but my face stayed calm. Elliot had warned me about this exact move. So you're saying I'm crazy? No, Marcus said quickly. Not crazy. Just not capable of handling everything anymore. It happens, Pop. You're 65. You've been through trauma. We want to make life easier for you. I let out a slow laugh that wasn't really laughter. Life easier? For who? You or me? Their eyes flickered. For the first time, they saw I wasn't folding. I built this house with my own 2 hands, I said, my voice steady. Raised you boys here. Buried my wife here. I ain't signing nothing. I ain't moving nowhere. Daryl's jaw clenched. Marcus's smile froze, brittle. Vanessa cleared her throat. David, think about what Gloria would want. She'd want you comfortable, surrounded by care. Not rattling around here like some stubborn old man. The use of Gloria's name made something in me snap. I stood, my hands gripping the table so hard my knuckles whitened. Don't you dare speak for her. The 3 of them went still. I leaned closer. You talk about my mind slipping? I see clear as day. Y'all circling like vultures, waiting on the last breath to cash your checks. But I ain't giving you nothing. Not this house. Not my name. Not my dignity. Marcus rose slowly, his smile gone. Careful, Pop. You're making this harder than it has to be. Get out, I said, pointing to the door. Pop, I said get out. My voice cracked through the house like a shotgun blast. For a moment, none of them moved. Then Marcus nodded once, his eyes cold. Fine, we'll do it the hard way. Daryl grabbed the bakery box. Vanessa lifted her purse, and together they walked out, silent except for the slam of the door. Through the window, I watched their cars roll down the street, their silhouettes stiff with anger. My hand shook so badly I had to sit down. But even through the fear, something inside me hardened. They weren't going to win. That night, Elliot came by, parking 2 blocks over and walking up quiet. I let him in, locking the door behind us. They came, I said. I know. I was across the street. Took photos. He set his camera on the table, showing me pictures of Marcus, Daryl, and Vanessa entering the house, then leaving 30 minutes later. This proves they're actively pressuring you. Combined with the recordings, it's strong evidence. They're pushing for guardianship, I told him. Said they've got a judge and a doctor already lined up. Elliot cursed under his breath. That means they're moving fast. They know time's running out. I sat heavy in my chair. Elliot, what if they kill me before it even goes to court? He looked me square in the eye. Then we don't give them the chance. From his satchel, he pulled a folder thicker than before. Inside were bank statements, receipts, and photographs. I've tracked their finances. Marcus owes 78 grand to a loan shark named Reggie Knox. Daryl's down 40 with the legal poker clubs. They're drowning. Killing Gloria was supposed to be their lifeline. When you didn't play along, they turned on you. I stared at the evidence, while rising in my throat. Tomorrow, Elliot said firmly, we take this to Sergeant Watkins at the precinct. He's clean, not in anyone's pocket. But we need one more thing. Proof Gloria's alive, or proof of what they did with her. I touched Gloria's notebook page, still folded in my pocket. Don't trust them. Her last message. I'll do whatever it takes, I said quietly. Elliot nodded. Good, because they're not just after your house or insurance anymore. They need you gone completely. And after today, I'd bet they're done waiting. The clock ticked heavy in the silence. Somewhere down the street, a dog barked. For the first time, I realized the fight wasn't just about justice. It was about survival. And I wasn't about to let my sons write the final chapter of my life. I barely slept that night. Every shadow outside my window looked like Marcus's Lexus or Daryl's Mercedes circling the block. Every creak in the house made me think of Gloria, as if her spirit was still trying to warn me. By sunrise, I was already at the kitchen table with her notebook spread out in front of me. Elliot's folder lay open too, pages of numbers and names that painted the story of my son's betrayal. At 8 o'clock sharp, Elliot knocked. He carried a thermos of coffee and a bag of plain biscuits, safe food. He called it. We ate in silence at first, the quiet broken only by the sound of his pen scratching across his legal pad. "We need to follow the money," he said finally. "Insurance is the key. If we find the paper trail, we find motive. And maybe, just maybe, we find Gloria." I swallowed hard. "You still think she might be alive?" He nodded. "Look at the timeline. 3 days before her supposed accident, she was at the clinic healthy. Then suddenly she dies in a kitchen fire? No autopsy. No coroner's report filed with the county? And Marcus arranging the funeral before the death certificate was signed? It doesn't add up." Hope flared, dangerous and fragile. "So how do we start?" "We go to the State Mutual Insurance office downtown. See what policies were changed or created in the months before her death." The office was a sterile building with beige walls and buzzing fluorescent lights. The receptionist, a young woman with curly hair, smiled politely when Elliot flashed his investigator badge. "I'm looking into a case involving a Gloria Carter," he said smoothly. "We need to see any insurance policies under her name or her husband's." Her smile faded slightly. "That requires authorization." Elliot leaned in just enough, lowering his voice. "Authorization we already have." He slid a folded paper across the counter, a legal-looking document I didn't dare ask too many questions about. She hesitated, then nodded and disappeared into the back. 10 minutes later, we were in a small cubicle, a thick file sitting between us. Elliot opened it carefully. My stomach dropped. Gloria had a life insurance policy for $10,000 when we first signed up decades ago. Modest coverage, enough to cover funeral costs and little more. But 3 months before her death, the policy had been increased to $250,000. The signature on the amendment was shaky, but it was hers. Or at least, it looked like hers. "What the hell?" I muttered. Elliot tapped the page. "And look who the beneficiaries are. Not you. Not a trust. Marcus and Daryl. 50% each." My chest constricted. "Gloria would never." "She was pressured," Elliot said softly. "Or someone forged this." I flipped deeper into the file, while rising in my throat. 2 weeks before her death, another policy appeared. Workers' comp coverage for the shop. It was unusual, considering I was close to retirement. Coverage, $100,000 in case of accidental death on the job. Beneficiaries, Marcus and Daryl again. Elliot shook his head. "This is more than greed. This was a blueprint for murder." The receptionist peeked in nervously. "Is everything okay?" Elliot smiled faintly. "Everything's fine. Thank you." She left, and I sat back in my chair dizzy. My sons hadn't just turned cold. They'd built an entire machine to profit from my wife's death. Outside, the air felt thick, like Atlanta itself knew what we'd uncovered. I leaned against Elliot's car, clutching the copies he'd made. "They didn't even put me on as beneficiary," I whispered. "They erased me." "They wanted control," Elliot said. "And cutting you out was step 1. Step 2, I realized, was my death. That afternoon, Elliot suggested we visit Jefferson Memorial Hospital, where Gloria had supposedly been taken after the fire. We walked to the records department, a maze of file cabinets and buzzing computers. The clerk, an older man with glasses slipping down his nose, asked what we needed. "My wife, Gloria Carter," I said, voice rough. "She died here 2 months ago. I want her medical file." He typed, frowned, then typed again. "Sir, we don't have a file under that name." Ice slid through my veins. "What do you mean you don't have a file? She was here. I saw Marcus and Daryl take care of everything." The clerk shook his head. "No record of admission. No ER visit. No death certificate filed through us. Elliot leaned closer. Check under aliases. Cross-check with her social security number. The clerk did, then sighed. Nothing. Sir, as far as this hospital is concerned, no Gloria Carter ever came through here. My knees nearly gave out. I gripped the counter. So what did I bury? The clerk looked uncomfortable. You'll need to ask the funeral home. The funeral home. The thought made me nauseous. But we drove there anyway, pulling up to the squat brick building of Haven Funeral Services. Inside, the director, a thin man named Mr. Clayton, recognized me immediately. Mr. Carter, he said with forced sympathy. Again, my condolences. I forced my voice steady. I need to see the records from my wife's service. The body you handled. Where it came from. The paperwork. Clayton shifted uncomfortably. Your sons handled all arrangements. They requested a closed casket. We never discussed. I don't care what they requested. I snapped. I want the records. Elliot flashed his badge again. Now. Clayton sighed and pulled a dusty file from the back cabinet. Inside, the details were vague. The body had been delivered directly by Marcus. No hospital transfer. No coroner's report. Cause of death listed simply as accidental fire. No autopsy performed. Elliot's jaw tightened. This is fraud. At best. At worst, concealment of a crime. I stared at the paper, my heart hammering. So she could still be alive. Clayton flinched, but said nothing. Back in the car, Elliot drove in silence, while I sat with my fists clenched. Everything pointed to one truth. Marcus and Daryl had staged Gloria's death. Whether she was still breathing, I didn't know. But I wasn't burying her yet. Not until I saw proof. Elliot finally spoke. We need to be careful. They'll sense we're digging. And if they know Gloria's alive somewhere, they'll do everything to keep us from finding her. I nodded, staring out at the passing streets. Let them try. They already stole my wife once. I won't let them do it again. That night back home, I sat at Gloria's desk, the green notebook under my hands. I whispered into the quiet house. If you're out there, hold on. I'm coming. My phone buzzed on the table. Another text from the unknown number. They know you went to the funeral home. Don't trust anyone tomorrow. Watch the house. And don't be alone after dark. My blood ran cold. Whoever was sending these messages, they weren't wrong. I shut off the lights, locked every door, and sat in the dark, listening. For the first time, I realized the war had officially begun. Morning sunlight crept weakly through the blinds, striping the living room in pale gold. I hadn't slept, couldn't. I'd sat in the recliner all night, with Gloria's notebook on my lap, listening for every shift of the wind and every passing car. My phone lay face up on the table. That last message burned into my mind. They know you went to the funeral home. Don't be alone after dark. By 8, I heard another car pull into the driveway. My body tensed, ready for Marcus or Daryl. But when the knock came, it was lighter, cautious. It's Elliot, the voice said quietly. I let him in. He carried a folder so thick it looked like a phone book, and under his arm was a small tape recorder. Couldn't sleep either, he said, dropping the folder onto the coffee table. But I found something. You need to see this. I leaned forward as he opened the folder. Inside were maps, receipts, and photographs. I started digging into the funeral home's financials, Elliot explained. They've been receiving unusual cash deposits, large ones, from an LLC tied to a property outside Decatur. That property is owned by a shell company Marcus set up last year. He slid a photo across the table, a rundown farmhouse at the edge of the woods. The windows were boarded, but the driveway showed recent tire tracks. My chest tightened. You think Gloria's there? I think it's likely, Elliot said grimly. At the very least, something's being hidden there. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. A new text from that same unknown number. They'll try today. Papers. Doctors. Don't sign. Don't drink. Don't trust. My stomach sank. They're coming back, I said quietly. Elliot nodded. Then let's be ready. At 10:30, I heard them before I saw them. 2 cars pulling into the driveway, doors slamming. Marcus's Lexus. Daryl's Mercedes. Vanessa's heels clicked across the porch as if this was a business meeting. They didn't wait for an invitation. Marcus walked in first, carrying a leather briefcase. Daryl followed with a folded stack of papers. Vanessa's smile was sharp enough to cut glass. "Pop," Marcus said smoothly. "We brought Dr. Whitaker with us." A man in his 50s, wearing a white coat and carrying a clipboard, stepped in behind them. He had a thin smile and eyes that avoided mine. "This is the psychiatrist I told you about," Marcus said. "He's here to help evaluate your situation." "My situation?" I asked coldly. Vanessa placed a hand on my shoulder like she owned me. "David, you've been confused. Talking about Gloria being alive. Going to the police. It's grief, sweetheart, but it needs professional attention." Elliot stepped forward, badge flashing. "This meeting is over. You're attempting to coerce Mr. Carter into signing guardianship papers under false pretenses." The room froze. Marcus's smile faltered. Daryl's jaw clenched. "Who the hell are you?" Marcus asked. "Private investigator," Elliot said evenly. "Gloria hired me weeks before her disappearance. I have evidence of insurance fraud, falsified medical records, and intent to commit harm against both parents." Daryl barked a laugh. "This is ridiculous. Pop, you see what grief does. He hired some quack to spin stories for you." But I stood, tall despite the tremble in my knees. "No, son. Your mama hired him because she didn't trust you. And she was right." The silence cracked open, thick and ugly. Marcus recovered first, slapping the briefcase onto the table. "Fine. If you won't listen to reason, we'll do it the legal way. Guardianship hearing is scheduled for next week. Dr. Whitaker's already prepared his report." He pulled out the papers, spreading them across the table. At the top, stamped in bold, "Petition for involuntary guardianship of David Carter." My name. Their signatures. Lies scrawled across pages, claiming I was delusional, paranoid, incapable of managing my affairs. I felt rage burn through me, hotter than grief. "You boys sat at this very table as children," I said slowly, voice shaking with fury. "Your mama fed you here. I taught you to play cards here. And now you bring lies into my house? You try to erase me." Marcus's face hardened. "Pop, this is for your own good." "No," Elliot cut in, his voice sharp. "This is for your debts. Your gambling. Your loans. Your greed." Marcus's eyes flickered, betraying him for the first time. Daryl looked at the floor. Vanessa straightened her shoulders. "Come on," she said briskly. "We don't need to waste time here. The court will handle it." They gathered their papers and stormed out. But before Marcus left, he turned, eyes cold. "You're making a mistake, Pop. And mistakes at your age are dangerous." The door slammed. My legs gave out, and I collapsed back into the chair. Elliot knelt beside me. "They're desperate," he said. "That makes them reckless, which means we have to move fast." I stared at the guardianship papers. "If the court believes this, they won't," Elliot said firmly. "Not once we show the evidence. The insurance fraud, the forged documents, the staged funeral. We'll bury them with their own lies." I nodded, my jaw clenched. But my thoughts weren't on the papers. They were on the farmhouse photo lying on the coffee table. "Elliot," I said quietly, "we need to go there." He hesitated. "It's risky. If Gloria's alive, she could be guarded. If she's not, I need to know." I cut in. "I can't keep burying her twice a day in my head." He studied me for a long moment, then nodded. "All right, tonight, after dark." We spent the afternoon preparing. Elliot loaded his satchel with recording devices, a camera, and a small handgun he carried discreetly. I tucked Gloria's notebook into my coat pocket, kneading it close like armor. As the sun dipped low, painting the sky bruised purple, we drove toward Decatur. The city lights faded, replaced by empty fields and dark trees. My stomach knotted tighter with every mile. At last, the farmhouse appeared, just as in the photo. Boarded windows, sagging porch, but a faint glow seeped from a crack in the curtains. Elliot parked a block away. "We go quiet," he whispered. We crept through the trees until we reached the edge of the property. Crickets chirped loud, covering our footsteps. From the back of the house came the sound of a generator humming. Elliot motioned for me to stay low as he slipped closer, camera ready. Through a gap in the boards, I glimpsed movement, someone pacing. My heart stuttered. Then, for just a second, a face came into view. Gloria. Her hair was disheveled, her skin pale, but her eyes, those eyes I'd loved for 42 years, were unmistakable. She clutched a blanket around her shoulders and sat heavily on a cot. Tears blurred my vision. "She's alive," I whispered hoarsely. Elliot grabbed my arm before I could rush forward. "Not yet. If we go in blind, we both die. We need proof. Photos. Video. Then we get her out with the police." He snapped shots quickly, adjusting the lens. Each click was a lifeline. Then headlights cut across the trees. Another car pulling up the dirt drive. My blood froze as Marcus and Daryl stepped out, their silhouettes sharp against the beams. Elliot cursed under his breath. "They're here." The generator hummed louder. My heart pounded so hard I thought it would give us away. This was no longer just about insurance, or guardianship papers, or debts. This was survival, mine, Gloria's, and maybe Elliot's too. The night air was thick with the smell of damp earth and gasoline from the idling Lexus. Elliot and I crouched in the trees, our breath shallow as Marcus and Daryl walked toward the farmhouse. Their voices carried faintly on the wind. "You sure no one followed?" Daryl asked. "Relax," Marcus muttered. "Pop doesn't have the guts. He'll cave once the court signs off." They disappeared inside. A door slammed. For a moment, silence swallowed everything but the steady hum of the generator. Elliot touched my shoulder, his voice barely a whisper. "We can't rush this. They're armed, I guarantee it. We need evidence and the right timing." But my chest burned. I'd seen Gloria. Breathing. Alive. Every instinct screamed to storm the house, to tear those boards down with my bare hands. But Elliot's grip anchored me. "Listen," he said, pressing a small recorder into my palm. "No matter what happens, keep this running. Their words are our weapon." I nodded, slipping it into my jacket pocket. My pulse hammered, so hard I felt it in my teeth. Inside, muffled voices rose and fell. We crept closer until we were pressed against the siding, listening through a crack. Gloria's voice, weak, trembling. "Please, just let me call David. He deserves to know." Marcus laughed, a cold sound I barely recognized as my son's. "Pop's fine, and once this is over, he'll be taken care of. More money than he ever dreamed." Daryl's voice followed, sharper. "Stop whining, Ma. You signed the papers. It's done." "I didn't know what I was signing," she whispered. Vanessa's heels clicked across the floor. She must have come in through the back. "Don't act innocent, Gloria. You were too stubborn. We had to push you. But it's better this way. The house, the shop, the policies, it's all clean. When David slips, everything falls to us." Gloria sobbed softly. My hand clenched into a fist, so tight my nails cut my palm. Elliot's eyes burned into mine, warning me to stay put. He raised his camera and snapped quiet photos through the gap. Gloria on the cot, Marcus flipping through papers, Daryl pacing, Vanessa pouring something into a glass. Then Marcus spoke again, his tone colder than ice. "Tomorrow we visit Pop again. Whitaker's got the psych eval signed. If he doesn't hand over the house, we make sure the court believes he's dangerous. A little slip, a stage breakdown. Hell, maybe he forgets to turn off the stove. The judge won't question it." Daryl chuckled. "Or we could speed it up. Put him where Mom is now. End it clean." Gloria cried out, "No. Don't you dare." The sound of her pain nearly broke me. I lurched forward, but Elliot's arm locked around me. His whisper was a knife in my ear. "Not yet. Evidence first. Then we save her." Inside, Vanessa's voice cut through. "Quiet, Gloria. You should be grateful we didn't do worse already. The only reason you're still breathing is because Marcus thought it'd look suspicious if you vanished without a funeral." My vision blurred red. They hadn't just stolen her freedom. They mocked her suffering. Elliot motioned for us to retreat. We crept back into the trees, his hand steady on my arm even as my legs shook. At a safe distance, he whispered, "We've got it. Audio, photos, everything. That's enough for Watkins to move. Tomorrow, we bring the police. But I shook my head violently. Tomorrow might be too late. You heard them. They're planning something for me. And Gloria, she's trapped in there tonight. He studied me, jaw tight. David, if we go in now, it's 2 against 3, possibly more. No backup. We could die. I stared back at the farmhouse, where a dim light glowed through the cracks. My wife was in there, praying for me, maybe thinking I'd given up. After everything, after 42 years, I couldn't walk away. I'd rather die trying than leave her. I whispered. Elliot cursed under his breath, then pulled his handgun. All right, but we do this smart. Quiet entry through the back. If things go wrong, we retreat to the car. Understood. I nodded. We circled wide, sticking to the trees until we reached the rear porch. The boards creaked underfoot, and I froze, but no one stirred inside. Elliot knelt, pulled a thin tool from his satchel, and worked at the lock. Within seconds, the door clicked open. We slipped inside. The back hall smelled of mildew and gasoline. A single bulb swung overhead, casting sickly yellow light. From the front room, voices murmured, Marcus and Daryl arguing about money, Vanessa sighing like she was bored. Gloria was only 30 feet away. Elliot motioned left, toward a narrow door. We eased it open. There she was, sitting on the cot, her hands bound loosely with rope. Her head jerked up, eyes wide when she saw me. David, she whispered, tears flooding her face. I nearly collapsed with relief. I rushed forward, cutting the ropes with Elliot's knife. She clung to me, sobbing into my chest. You're alive, I choked out. Oh God, you're alive. But Elliot's hand gripped my arm. We need to go. Now. Too late. A floorboard creaked behind us. Well, Marcus's voice drawled. Look who couldn't mind his business. I spun. Marcus stood in the doorway, a pistol in his hand. Daryl flanked him, jaw tight, holding a length of pipe. Vanessa's eyes glittered behind them. Pop, Marcus said softly, almost like the boy I'd raised. You shouldn't have come here. Gloria tightened her grip on me. Elliot shifted subtly, his hand near his own gun, but Marcus noticed. Don't, Marcus snapped, or the old man dies right here. The room pulsed with silence, broken only by the generator's hum and Gloria's ragged breaths. You planned all this, I said, my voice low, steady despite the terror clawing inside me. You kidnapped your own mama. You tried to bury her alive. And now you want to finish me too. Marcus's eyes hardened. You never gave us enough, Pop. Always scraping by, patching leaks in a roof instead of giving us what we deserved. This was survival. Survival. I spat. No, this is murder. Daryl stepped forward, pipe raised. We could end it now. No courts. No cops. Just done. Vanessa's voice slid like poison. Do it. He's too stubborn. She's too nosy. Clean slate. Elliot moved in a flash, gun drawn, aimed straight at Marcus. Drop it. Now. The standoff froze, Marcus aiming at me, Elliot at him, Daryl twitching with the pipe, Gloria clutching my arm like a lifeline. For a heartbeat, the world held its breath. I realized then, this was the breaking point. One wrong move, and my family story would end in blood. The air inside that rotting farmhouse was thick enough to choke on. Sweat, gasoline, fear, and 42 years of love balanced against a single twitch of a trigger. Marcus had his pistol trained on me, his hand steady in a way that made my stomach twist. Daryl gripped the iron pipe, restless, eyes darting between Elliot's gun and my face. Vanessa leaned against the wall, cool as a glass of gin, as if watching a play she'd already read the ending to. Gloria clung to me, her nails biting through my jacket. David, she whispered, barely audible. Don't let them. Shut her up. Marcus barked, voice cracking with nerves. Elliot's voice cut across the tension, sharp and calm. Marcus, think carefully. You shoot your father, you're finished. I have recordings, photographs, evidence. The second that gun goes off, you'll spend the rest of your life in a cell. Marcus sneered. Evidence doesn't mean anything if no one's around to use it. I stepped forward, slow, my hands raised. My voice came out steady low. Marcus, Daryl, look at me. You're my sons. I raised you. I worked my hands raw in that garage to put food in your mouths. I gave you every damn thing I had. And this is how you pay me back. Daryl's jaw twitched. For just a flicker, something like shame crossed his face. You don't understand, Pops. We were drowning. The debts, then drown. I snapped. But don't you dare drag your mama and me under with you. Gloria's sob broke through the silence. Daryl's grip faltered, but Marcus's eyes were stone. Enough, Marcus said, tightening his finger on the trigger. We end this now. Time slowed. My heartbeat thundered in my ears. Elliot's gun shifted a fraction, aiming higher. Gloria's grip tightened on my arm. And then crash. The back window exploded inward. Shards of glass rained down as a spotlight cut across the room. Police. Drop your weapons, a booming voice roared. Marcus flinched, his gun wavering. Daryl stumbled back, pipe clattering to the floor. Vanessa's eyes widened for the first time, her cool mask cracking. Elliot exhaled sharply. About damn time. Through the window and door burst uniformed officers, guns drawn, shields raised. At their front was Sergeant Watkins, his voice steady as granite. Hands up now, he barked. Marcus hesitated a beat too long. Elliot lunged, knocking the pistol from his hand. It clattered across the floor, sliding beneath the cot. Two officers tackled Marcus before he could react. Daryl dropped to his knees, hands raised, as if the weight of the world had finally snapped his spine. Vanessa backed into the corner, her voice shrill. I didn't do anything. It was all them. Gloria collapsed against me, sobbing into my chest as officers swarmed the room. Watkins strode in, eyes sweeping the chaos. He gave Elliot a nod. Got your message. Good thing you left that tracker ping. We've been circling the block for an hour, waiting for confirmation. Elliot holstered his gun, relief softening his features. You cut it close. Close is better than dead, Watkins replied. The next hour blurred. Marcus and Daryl were cuffed, read their rights, shoved into the back of cruisers. Vanessa screamed her innocence until her voice broke, but the officers ignored her. The farmhouse was searched, evidence bagged, insurance papers, bottles of methanol, rope, forged signatures. Gloria was wrapped in a blanket and escorted to an ambulance. I stayed glued to her side, afraid if I let go she'd vanish again. Elliot gave his statement outside, handing over photos, recordings, the guardianship petition. Watkins clapped him on the shoulder. This'll stick. They'll never see daylight again. When it was finally over, and Gloria was cleared by paramedics, weak but alive, I sat with her in the back of the ambulance. My hand shook as I brushed her hair from her face. You were gone, I whispered. I buried you. Her lips trembled. They drugged me, David. Said it was for stress. Next thing I knew, I was here. They made me sign papers. Told me it was for you. I tried to fight, but she broke into sobs. I thought I'd never see you again. I pulled her into my arms, rocking her like we were young again, like the world couldn't touch us. You're safe now. I've got you. 2 days later, we sat together in our living room, sunlight spilling across the worn rug. Gloria's red robe still hung on the hook, waiting for her. The house smelled of coffee and biscuits again, not fear. She sipped from her favorite mug, hand still trembling slightly. David, how could our boys? Her voice broke. I had no answer. The question gnawed at me too. How could sons we'd raised with love turn so cold? How could greed carve out their souls? Elliot visited that afternoon with updates. Marcus and Daryl are facing charges for conspiracy to commit murder, insurance fraud, kidnapping, unlawful confinement. Vanessa too. With the recordings and Gloria's testimony, the DA's confident. Gloria nodded weakly, then looked at me. But they're still our children. The words cut deep. I wanted to feel the same. But when I closed my eyes, all I saw was Marcus pointing that pistol at my chest, Daryl clutching the pipe, Vanessa urging them to finish it. They chose money over blood, I said finally. That makes them strangers. Tears slipped down Gloria's cheeks, but she didn't argue. That night, after Elliot left, we sat together on the porch swing, watching the fireflies spark across the yard. For the first time in weeks, The night air felt safe. Gloria leaned her head on my shoulder. "You saved me." "No," I whispered, kissing her hair. "We saved each other." The cicadas sang. The stars blinked overhead. And though scars would linger, though grief would haunt us, we were alive. Together. And that, I realized, was worth more than any fortune. Months later, the trial made headlines across Georgia. Sons conspire to kill parents for insurance payout. The courtroom was packed every day. Marcus tried charm. Daryl tried tears. Vanessa played the victim. But the evidence was overwhelming. The jury didn't take long. Guilty. All counts. When the verdict was read, Gloria wept softly beside me. I felt nothing but a hollow ache. Justice didn't heal betrayal. It only marked a line where love had ended. Afterward, Gloria squeezed my hand. "We still have each other, David. That's enough." And for the first time in months, I believed her. Our life returned to quiet rhythms. The garage was still there, though I worked slower now. Gloria returned to her choir, her voice softer but strong. We cooked dinners together, sat on the porch, watched the seasons turn. Sometimes I caught her staring at the old photos of Marcus and Daryl as children, her eyes wet with memories of innocence long gone. I'd pull her close and remind her we'd done our best. The choices they made were their own. And at night, when the house was dark and still, I whispered into the quiet, "We survived." Because survival, in the end, was its own kind of victory.